Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to this very special edition of This Week in Bitcoin. Today is February the 22nd, 2019. Strong hand. Long-term thinking. Value your wealth in Bitcoin. Bitcoin, the apex predator, offended by selling. Okay, it is unconfiscatable. We've got a very special guest on today. He's unconfiscatable. He's the apex predator of Bitcoin guests. Simon Dixon is the panel today. Welcome to the show, Simon Dixon.
Always good to be here, Adam. Thanks for having me again.
Okay, so it's been a nice week in Bitcoin, been a nice week in crypto. Let's go over some of the bigger stories at first, then we'll get into the nitty gritty. A lot of people are excited because Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey are talking about Bitcoin. Personally, one person does not make Bitcoin. They could start talking bad about Bitcoin for all I care. It could happen at any moment. You can't put too much stock. But still, people get excited in it. So what do you say about Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk and other celebrities talking Bitcoin?
Well, I think Jack Dorsey is more significant for a few reasons. Because firstly, he's not just talking about it; he's doing it. He's actually opening up Lightning channels. He's discussing possibilities for Stripe integration. They already are a company that allows for merchants to accept Bitcoin for payments. He's the CEO of both Twitter and Stripe. And also he's investing his cold hard cash into Lightning Labs. And he's passing the torch and he's actually getting in the trenches. So I think Jack Dorsey being involved is a really, really good sign of times. I think it is an important thing. At the end of the day, the founder of Twitter is one of the most largest traffic social media platforms in the world behind Facebook. And if the founder is professed to be a Bitcoin maximalist and he believes that Bitcoin is going to be the native currency of the internet, while we all might discuss that and believe that and been saying that for years, Jack Dorsey actually has the clout and the ability to put that into one of the largest social networks in the world, open Lightning channels. And I think it's incredibly bullish sign. I remember the days when the price of Bitcoin used to move based upon Bob Baker in somewhere in some obscure location, except in Bitcoin. Now we've got Twitter, the CEO of, Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, investing in Lightning Labs, opening Lightning channels, discussing the integration with Twitter and Stripe. And yet the price doesn't really move. And that's a good sign of the maturity. But these are all long-term things that are actually going to have significant impact on it. Now, Elon Musk is always an interesting one because he is a futurist. He is actually crazy. Some of the companies and value he's brought to the world. I'm a big fan of Tesla. I got one myself. Think it's the best car in the world. So I've got a bit of a bias towards the brands that I like, and so I get, but he's just talking about it. Now, what was interesting is when Elon Musk talks about these things, he brings up a whole debate around energy efficiency, because obviously Tesla was built around, disrupting legacy systems with petrol and gasoline and replacing it with electricity. And so I think he had a bit of a PR angle where he really wanted to speak well about Bitcoin. But also there's this whole debate around the energy efficiency of Bitcoin. I was in Cancun and happened to meet Saifedean Ammous because he was there as well. And he's got some really interesting research on the whole electricity argument and the efficiencies. But I think with Elon Musk, he could only mention it, but he had to caveat it with because he could see the big press and headlines coming around this whole energy efficiency debate in Bitcoin.
So okay, Jack Dorsey, he's for real. But Elon, he's doing it for. He's got ulterior motives, perhaps. Who knows? Good. I'm glad to hear this. And wow, you've got a Tesla. I mean, everybody knows I talk about Tesla 2021 on this channel.
Oh,
But yeah, you've got Tesla in 2019 already. They are fun cars, though.
Yeah, purchased with Bitcoin, but unfortunately Tesla wouldn't accept the Bitcoin. I had to go via a fiat.
Okay, so Elon's company wouldn't accept the Bitcoin. Now let's get Jack's company to accept the Bitcoin here on Twitter to integrate it. And speaking of that, there's something sort of like that going on. This tippin.me. You've played around with it. What exactly is it?
We're hitting that interesting this time in Bitcoin now. It's really bizarre how Bitcoin goes through its cycles. It feels right now with the Lightning Network how Bitcoin felt right in the beginning when everyone was creating these strange, obscure applications to try and really support Bitcoin adoption and to give people a way to use their Bitcoin. And I remember in the early days, there was a tremendous energy around micropayments and Bitcoin serving the use case of micropayments. Now, what's really interesting is that Lightning seems to have re-energized that energy of help people creating applications to support merchant adoption because of the benefits of the lower transaction fees and the speed and efficiency. And I think people are getting I think over Bitcoin's history, as people started to realize that Bitcoin might not serve the exact use case that they originally thought it would serve, and the rhetoric around it becoming a store of value came out, and people gave up on Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. But now Lightning Network has really reinvigorated that energy, and we're seeing a lot of the people that are building technology just allowing people to send Satoshis instantly at very, very negligible fees. And so I think that's a positive thing. I think that's a good thing for us to get behind. And Tippin is just an example of someone that came along and created a website where you could log in with Twitter and you can send Satoshis around the internet and tip people. I remember originally the first play at this in the early days was a company called ChangeTip. And ChangeTip didn't, I mean, it started to be, it got a lot of hype around being an early application for Bitcoin, but the transaction fees made such user cases not possible. And the company, I believe it didn't make it in the end. I think it went past, I can't quite remember. But Tippin now has built this technology on the Lightning Network, and really we're getting a reinvigoration of people that are building Bitcoin to serve the medium of exchange use case, which was always what the idea behind Lightning was. Now, there's still so many usability issues, and maybe we can go a deeper discussion into Lightning. But it's just great to see right now that there's this energy that's reemerged around this, which I think is an important part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, that is really a great point. The energy point in terms of comparing it to the old days when people were coming up with quirky little ideas like this, it is similar. That's a really awesome point. Everybody, check out the links below. Simon is linked to below. Pound that like button. And yes, Simon, I would like to get into the user experience with Lightning. And when do you think it's going to be a little bit easier to use?
Well, it is getting easier, but it's still bloody hard to use. I've started to make my first Lightning transactions. I've started to play around. But there are, I'm really excited about the fact that this is, we're getting some volume here. We're getting some exciting numbers. There is definitely exponential growth in terms of the number of Bitcoins that are held up in these channels that allow for the instant payments. But there are some really unknown and interesting questions that still need to be answered. And I preface this with, I believe that entrepreneurs will create solutions to this. That's the idea behind this. That every time you point out a problem, then that's an opportunity for an entrepreneur to create a business to solve that problem, or even for an open source, hacker cypherpunk to create a solution for the good of the community. That's how all this was all built. But there is, an interesting question in that the way that Lightning Network works is you either have to have a Lightning node, which is just completely unusable. Only the geekiest of the geekiest are going to do those, and Lightning nodes are going on exponential growth path right now. And some of the companies that are building, Lightning nodes and allowing people to do that easily are going well. But if you don't want to have a Lightning node, then you do have to trust in a custodian. And that is kind of against the ethos of what Bitcoin was originally designed to do. And essentially, that is an open question that needs to be answered. So the answer to how do we improve usability? Well, we have to have more custodians, but do we want more custodians? That is a real open question. And I know a lot of the wallets, so I've been playing around with a couple of the wallets. I've also been playing around with some nodes, and the experience of setting up a node is just not fun. I'm not a technician. I'm a finance guy that got into technology because Bitcoin was just such a, I believe such an important thing in the world, but it drives you into technology, and you end up finding yourself in situations where you're trying to figure out how to set up a node. But that is definitely not a user experience for the masses, and Lightning is meant to be a massive solution. So you end up with a custodial alternative where someone runs the node for you. And I'm really, really intrigued and interested to see where we're going to take this next, because there's no doubt about it that Lightning Network can definitely produce, almost infinite scaling for Bitcoin. It's just many of the user experiences that are turning up are kind of treating it almost like an altcoin, where you're getting your Bitcoin, then you're converting it into Litecoin. You're converting it into Lightning. And the user experience feels a bit like an altcoin, which is just not a great user experience at this stage. But, I remember when you had to, download some software on your computer and there was no mobile apps, there was no user experience, there was no usability in this. So I'm not treating this as unsolvable issues, but a mountain of opportunity for entrepreneurs to create solutions, because right now it is going through exponential growth, but definitely not at the consumer level. And I think, having people like Jack Dorsey behind this that are actually going to integrate into usable systems for the masses is really, an important thing that we need to see to get adoption for this.
Well, Lightning Network would work very nicely with Twitter if it was built into Twitter. That would that would solve a lot of Twitter's problems, I think, in spamming and trolling and such. People paying not to see that type of stuff. Very small little payments. Now you go into custodial accounts. That it's right now using Lightning Network. Yeah, custodial solutions are an easy solution. And do we want custodial solutions? Well, looking at the broader picture here, it seems like Bitcoin as a whole and cryptocurrency as a whole, people are into custodial accounts and letting other people control their private keys, and this is not going to stop. This is not going to slow down. And so I could see the same thing happening with Lightning. Again, we on this channel, we understand the control your own private key solution or line, but we're the exception. And what I'm wondering, my bigger question is, I've heard all sorts of numbers of the percent of people in the United States who actually own crypto, or the percent of people in the world who actually own crypto. And whatever that number is, I would think the overwhelming majority have a third party holding their crypto. My question is, what do you think the percentages are now of people on the planet that have a crypto, and people in Bitcoin, people that have Bitcoin in the United States, or crypto in the United States, excuse me?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Unfortunately, I've got no, academic research to back what I'm saying. I'm just saying what I see and believe. I think if you're just talking about the number of people, my guess would be that the vast majority of people would have a custodial wallet, a bank-like wallet, something like Coinbase, or they're leaving their coins at an exchange. And certainly the numbers are much greater when it comes to, I guess, in Bitcoin, I think there are more people that would have learned the value of having a hardware wallet. In Ethereum, I think there is maybe a community because the applications require you to have your private key in order to gain access to them. But in speculation of all sorts of altcoins and tokens and everything else, then the vast majority are just definitely holding those at exchanges. In terms of actual number of people, I mean, I'd guess it would still 90% of people are holding those with someone else. 10% of people are actually getting the hardware wallet. And I guess you could look at the growth of companies like Ledger and Trezor to get some kind of analysis on it. I just haven't done the analysis myself. But in terms of value, I think that's an important question as well, because I do think the big Bitcoin, people that are storing vast amounts of wealth in crypto, I don't think they're going to be holding them at exchanges. And I think it's a very dangerous thing to do that, because once your crypto becomes worth a certain amount, when it comes to withdrawing it, even if you started when it was worth a very small amount, and by the time it comes to withdrawing it, it's worth a lot more, then you're going to have real trouble withdrawing that, because you're going to have to explain where it came from, what it did, how it got there, where it's going, and there'll be limitations on how much you can withdraw each day, and all sorts of things in order to comply with, with the custodian having to comply with regulations. So the job of everybody is, maybe you coming during a custodial solution, but the sooner you get that into a non-custodial solution, at a time when it's safe because you've done the work to figure out, how to secure them, then you're not going to encounter that issue where you've got vast sums of wealth in a custodial solution without the ability to take it out because somebody doesn't like what you're doing with it or how you want to move it.
Yeah. Now I've got even a broader question. I've heard the number that in the United States of America, 4.5% of citizens have cryptocurrency. Do you think that's overreach there? Do you think that's an exaggeration?
That's a really hard question for me to answer. So 4.5% in terms of number of people. So there's like 350 million people. Probably I'm butchering this in America.
No, that's you're on the right track there.
Okay.
So yeah, we're saying 15 million people in the United States have it.
I think that sounds like a reasonable assumption that there might be 15 million people in the States. Everyone in Silicon Valley's got it. I know that.
Okay. That's a great point, because when I hear 4%, it seems like a high number. It seems like a high number to me. And then they talk about on the planet Earth that 2% of all people have cryptocurrency of some sort.
Yeah, well, I believe that there are about 25 million customers at Coinbase. Blockchain.com is a slightly different one because you can open as many wallets as you want, but with Coinbase, these are actually individuals. And I have no idea, but I reckon a big portion of Coinbase's customers are in the States.
Yeah. So I think we've got some corners of the world and some corners of the United States where it's very high. You just said everyone in Silicon Valley. I mean, if half the people in Silicon Valley really had crypto, I mean, that would skew the numbers. That would definitely make it, So, but I just, when I
would be amazed. I would be amazed if there's anyone in Silicon Valley that is involved in the tech scene and doesn't have crypto. That would be very shocking to me.
Very interesting. I haven't interacted with those guys lately. My real life experiences is when I go back to Baltimore, I see the family, I talk to old friends, and then that's why I'm like, oh God, it can't be like more than 1% of people have this thing. But then again, if you're living in Palo Alto, you're probably like, well, half the world's got this already or something. So yeah, that is a good point, and I gotta think more about that. So I would love there to be a really official scientific study telling us what are the percentages in every country? Because it just, sometimes I hear, oh, there's a lot of people in South Africa that have it. There's a lot of people in America and there's the numbers vary, and the planet.
Yeah, so we can have the study, but if you can do the study, then Bitcoin is failing because it was designed so you can't do the study, so that people can have their privacy.
There we go. Pound that like button, everyone. And that is part of the reason there's confusion out there. That's a good point.
Should we ask Simon's cat? I got my guest here.
All right. Yeah, that was very good. Very good. All right. So now, moving on from those numbers, let's talk about, well, some FUD-like numbers. There are two things that are being FUDded around, and I don't know if you've heard about it. And I know where you stand on one of them, I am sure. Some people are trying to say, oh, they should increase the number of Bitcoin that are produced over time. That it's this 21 million limit. It's not cool anymore. So there's supply FUD. And then there's also block size FUD. Some people want to make the block size smaller now. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts are that if those two things could happen, then I think it would be very detrimental to Bitcoin, because I think we're at a stage right now where we're sufficiently decentralized where any of those changes would cause so much contention that they'd be highly likely to lead to a hard fork and just not get through. I think we're at the stage in Bitcoin where we need to rely upon the fact that a group of miners cannot collude together in order to change the protocol, or a group of developers cannot collude together in order to change the protocol, or a group of businesses cannot collude together in order to change the protocol, or a group of users cannot collude together in order to change the protocol. My belief and hope is that any of those suggested changes just would not get the consensus needed in order to make those changes. And if a group of people or a part of the Bitcoin crypto economy could get those changes in, then it would, to me, it would make Bitcoin sound like it's a bit weaker and a bit less decentralized than it feels at the moment. So it's all cool if you want to debate these things, if you want to put propositions forward, but getting consensus on those changes is going to be another thing. So anyone's allowed to put their proposals forward.
And anyone can fork off too and create a inflation Bitcoin if they want to, and see how well that goes. I do know you are a big fan of the 21 million, and as am I. That's like one of the main.
Yeah, block size. I've always been somewhat neutral in the block size debate. I've never professed to know the answer to that. I don't think anyone knows the answer to that. I think the arguments for increasing the block size are plausible. I think the arguments for decreasing the block size are plausible, and I think the arguments for level 2 scaling are plausible. The fixed money supply, then that would just completely change what I originally got involved with Bitcoin for. And if that were to ever change, then that would really be something that would probably be the one thing that might even take me out of being involved in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would say that, and that's how impossible such a scenario is. I mean, at least under the current circumstances, increasing the supply is, I mean, that's against the foundational roots of Bitcoin. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the future here, and what is going to be the main catalyst of Bitcoin's growth in the future? Is it going to be Lightning type of stuff, or is it going to be the financialization of Bitcoin? What do you think is going to gain more attention and really? Are we on two separate paths here too? Can they both? I mean, they can exist simultaneously, but will one, in the near future at least, the next 5 years, what's going to take Bitcoin to the moon?
The more useful Bitcoin is, at the time when your traditional money becomes less useful, the more it will go to the moon, as it were. So at the moment, Bitcoin is useful for people that want to own their own money, spend their own money without censorship, have money that's unconfiscatable, other than someone actually trying to steal the actual private key. And the fact that there's a fixed money supply creating economics that reward the saver over the long term over the debtor. The traditional financial system is the exact opposite. It's custodial. You can't own your own money. You have to get permission in order to spend your money if someone doesn't like the way you're doing it. And the money supply continually changes based upon the politics of the country that you happen to reside. And if you happen to reside in Venezuela, then your savings are depleted to nothing. If you happen to reside in the States, then as long as the government can sustain their what was $2 trillion debt in during the financial crisis, that is now $22 trillion debt, that is now $240 trillion global debt, then as long as that system perpetuates itself, then your savings will still be there, but over the long term they will deplete and you'll have to work harder in order to add to the dollar supply. Every time the user experience of traditional money gets worse, and I don't mean Jack Dorsey creating Square that allows people to have merchant adoption for small amounts of money. I mean people that have money on deposit and it gets bailed in, or people that have money and they're told that they can no longer withdraw it for cash, or people that have savings and they travel to a country that the government doesn't think you should be traveling to, and therefore they tell you that you're no longer allowed to spend your money. Or the central bank coming along and having to bail out the entire financial system because the private banks are about to lose everyone's deposits and they have to create a blockchain-based fiat currency that ruins the user experience of money to the point where you can no longer spend it and taxes auto-collected and governments exercise so much control over your financial position that you are driven to something else. So the long answer is, the worse the user case of traditional money gets, and the traditional financial system is really on a good path to making traditional money a very bad user experience. It's only good for people that spend small money and don't have too much wealth in traditional money. And the better and more usable we can make Bitcoin. So Lightning is not something that has to happen in order to make Bitcoin happen. It just makes it more useful in order to actually make microtransactions faster and cheaper if that can actually happen. And so really it is just the Bitcoin needs to continue becoming more usable. It's got a critical mass of people building on top of this technology to make it better and better and better. And the traditional financial system just needs to continue doing what it's doing and figure out how they're going to actually repay that $240 trillion of debt without wiping out everybody's savings in the largest Ponzi scheme that we've seen in financial history.
Now, does a Bitcoin ETF make Bitcoin more usable?
What a Bitcoin ETF does is, if the traditional financial system implodes, then you will lose all the custody of the funds that you had in the Bitcoin ETF. In the meantime, it will track the progress of the actual Bitcoin, and it will allow people to onboard in a way where it buys them enough time to figure out how to actually get the real Bitcoin, own a hardware wallet, and take personal responsibility for their own personal security. Because you're going to need to learn that anyway, because hackers are going to want to hack everything, especially as everything goes techno and AI and all that stuff anyway. So you've got to learn at some point how to protect yourself from hackers. And the ETF is just, to me, an onboarding system that drives tremendous funds of money that takes out Bitcoin supply, because the ETF is going to be a long-term hodler by definition, which decreases the supply of Bitcoins available and held up in a way that I personally wouldn't like to store them, but will be convenient for lots and lots of money that hasn't entered the market yet, and buy people enough time to either that goes down with traditional financial pressures or gets rehypothecated or whatever they're going to do in the traditional financial system, while you learn how to actually take self-responsibility, self-wealth, and learn how to earn your own private key as the skill that you're going to need for the future for everything anyway.
Personal responsibility is the new counterculture, as they say. Pound that like button, everybody. Follow me on Twitter at TechBalt, TechBalt. Remember, a new show here every day. Get t-shirts below, support the show, etc. I want to stick with this a little bit here. Let's imagine that it's 2021 and the Lightning Network experience is like seamless. It's easy. Everyone can do it. At the same time, there is a Bitcoin ETF has been out for a year. What's a bigger story?
Well, I mean, that is the scenario that I think we're definitely going to have. You're going to have an ETF that's taking out a lot of the money supply. And then you've got people that can actually use Bitcoin. They can store it and they can use it the way that, very fast and cheap at the same time. And I believe that there is, this system, while it still works, might create a great user experience and people will benefit. But this side is where you got to get to eventually, and you might have the story that the ETF's private key was compromised or hacked, and that significantly reduces the money supply of Bitcoin if someone can't access the ETF Bitcoin. And then the people that are using it and have it on their hardware wallet would kind of benefit from the price increase that would happen as initially people realize that that's a disastrous event. But just like it was similar to, I don't know if you remember the Silk Road price action. Initially, when the Silk Road got taken down, there was like a real crash in the price and panic because people were thinking, okay, this use case of Bitcoin's gone. But then people started to realize that these Bitcoins are kind of held up, and people had a perception that might be good for the Bitcoin ecosystem and tidying up the brand, and so the price kind of went up. And I could imagine something similar happening, but I honestly don't believe that it could happen. But it would be incredibly interesting if one of these large financial institutions with all the regulations couldn't set up an incredibly sophisticated technical setup where those Bitcoins can't be compromised when they're, and that is the whole thing. That's why the SEC is taking their time. How is that going to be custodial, and what are the market manipulation?
Yes. Well, I want to go back to, again, this was kind of implied beforehand, but this week in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, this month, beyond in the news, in the United States at least, and I'm worldwide, there seems to be a trend toward socialism. A lot of talk. It's cool again to be a socialist, and there's some people that are kind of panic stricken and are woe is me type of people. For me, I look on the bright side. I think this is great news for Bitcoin. But what I'm wondering is when are some of the people that are in panic mode going to realize, like, okay, if they go the socialist direction, then we got to go to Bitcoin. You just can't sit there. You just can't sit there. You got to get into Bitcoin. Do you think have you heard this socialism talk? And do you think it's good for Bitcoin?
I haven't really heard like this, the social trends versus capitalism trends and socialism. I mean, I'm guessing that they're referring to the fact that it might create more inequality or something like that. But at the moment, everyone has the opportunity to be involved, no matter how small or how big, and everyone should be involved in in a small way, just as a hedge and an insurance policy. Not too sure on what. Well,
I'm saying in general, there's been a lot of talk about Bernie Sanders and some other politicians in the United States think that the direction of the country, of the world, should be towards socialism, where everyone's got to pay for all these government programs, and your money can be you're going to be taxed out of existence. And I think that's great news for Bitcoin. That so instead of people being in fiat, they learn the hard way that, hey, they should be in Bitcoin, and they won't have to play into that system. That broader picture is what I'm talking about. That as more and more people want to be bailed out in this world, I think that's good news for Bitcoin. I think it presents a good use case for Bitcoin. You don't want to play if you don't want to play in that realm where you can have you can be part of a bailout, then get into Bitcoin because they can't take that away.
So like a counterculture against, well, that would be an interesting study to see.
Exactly. It's the counterculture. But when are people going to wake up to this? That this is the way to. It's mainstream culture is heading towards socialism. Is what I'm seeing. At least seeing some of these videos coming from the United States and people saying, "Hey, I'm $250,000 in debt because of college, and now Bernie Sanders is going to bail me out." That's everyone thinks that's a great idea, but and then the counterculture is toward personal responsibilities, toward holding Bitcoin, and I just I wonder when more and more people will figure it out that this is a way to opt out of the system. That's
yeah, what tends to be adoption in crypto tends to be driven by either necessity, which we haven't really experienced, at a great extent yet. Or speculation. And I think I'm okay with that. If people get into crypto for speculative reasons, and then the side effect of that is that they find out that there's this great system that exists outside the traditional financial system, then that's great. So, but it tends to be, I think most people are driven by the emotion of greed, rather than the emotion of fear, which will be the necessity. And people tend to leave the emotion of fear right until the very last second when they need it the most, which is where most people are.
Yeah, but short-term thinkers won't find out about it until the end, until they're forced to. That's why you got to be a long-term thinker. You'll find out about it beforehand. You see the direction the world is going in, and instead of waiting to the last second when you're panic-stricken, you get in now. So
what I think is really interesting in that, in terms of, I think people need to start actually thinking like speculators, and let me explain that a little bit more. I was having a thought the other day that actually, although you might consider yourself an investor and you might not consider yourself a speculator, but actually, aren't we all speculating in everything we do? If you decide to not learn about Bitcoin and hold all your money in dollars or pounds or Hong Kong dollars or whatever your local currency is, then essentially you're speculating without even knowing it about it on the credit risk of the bank, and the ability for the government to manage that money in a way that you think is responsible and works in your interest. And then if you decide to buy a house or real estate or invest it, then essentially you're speculating on the money supply being perpetuated by debt and credit risk banks and governments perpetuating the system, because property prices probably wouldn't go up if the monetary system were to change. And so what I think is a useful thing for people to think is, imagine your wealth, whether that's a credit card, a small amount, the money that you have access to. How you hold it is actually, you might just by default not put it in Bitcoin, not look at whether dollars is a reasonable place to put it or another currency. But essentially, by opting out of making that decision, you're handing over the speculation to somebody else, because we all are speculating. We're speculating on our currency, on our banks, on the system working, on the government's policies, on Bitcoin, on stocks, on shares. Wherever you allocate your resources is a speculation. And I think you need to educate yourself and really determine consciously what you're actually willing to speculate on, rather than having someone else decide how to speculate for you.
Oh yeah, but most people aren't into critical thinking like that, to even to analyze the situation as deep as you just described. But hey, if you are, think about it long and hard. What is the risk profile of that bank? Is it worth it to be involved with the dollar and let them hold your dollars for you? Is it a better idea to control your own private key and be in Bitcoin? I think everyone knows where Simon and I are on that one. So let's move on to Samsung. That was in the news. Did you have any thoughts on that? Samsung phones are going to have a crypto wallet maybe in them soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great sign of times that these large hardware manufacturers are actually looking to do stuff in the crypto space, that they've decided that crypto is significant enough and interesting enough for them to actually either sell more phones because they can market to the crypto community, or that they can increase the utility of their phone by saying that crypto is significant enough for people to actually want that part of integrated in the phone. And this is really an incredible sign of times that we kind of take it for granted now. That all of this tiny little thing is attracting Bitcoin is so mainstream in my mind right now, when you have things like Samsung saying that they're actually going to integrate wallets. Now, whether that adds any utility to you as an individual, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to set it up. Maybe the phone is a hardware wallet, or what's the point, because you can just download an app anyway. I don't know what the user experience is going to be. But the fact that they're actually thinking like this just says to me that the writing's on the wall about where crypto is going. This is just, to me, it's just inevitable now. The fact that so many companies and so many people all around the world are thinking like this, and to me, the bear market was just, it's crystal clear to me that this bear market was mass accumulation, over-the-counter trades to accumulate as much Bitcoin as humanly possible. Wall Street and NASDAQ and stock exchange all of a sudden, and Fidelity and everyone all of a sudden, all extremely, seeing Bitcoin as this reputable thing. Originally, they laughed at it. Then they tried to take it out with the word blockchain. Then they tried to create their own things. And now they're talking about how Bitcoin's the only reputable thing that they could actually create custodial solutions for, or ETF solutions for, or cryptocurrency exchanges for. And all of these financial institutions, all of these large companies, all getting involved in this during, and building this technology. It's just, to call this a bear market just because of the price. I can't put into words how much technological development, how much integration this is taking in the world. And very few people actually know that and realize that. And I'm just certain that the last year was just about ginormous mass accumulation and redistribution of Bitcoins in this bear market before every single financial institution and large companies start releasing their solutions. And just having Samsung integrate that into the phone. We take these things for granted now, but this is really, really big, powerful companies that are saying crypto's not going anywhere. I don't know how you reverse it from here. I don't know what people don't understand. This is part of this is integrated into pretty much everything we're going to be doing. And very few people realize that right now. And the bear market produces maybe the last opportunity for people to get involved in that, if they can just think beyond some short-term price movements and what's happening here. These companies do not mess around their reputation on things that are fly-by-night and going to disappear.
Ooh, writing is on the wall, people. Pound that like button. Well, I think you're like, what are people waiting for? What are they? What aren't they noticing? Well, I agree. There are probably all sorts of institutions that people don't like, that they blame their problems on, that are accumulating Bitcoin right now, while these individuals who blame their problems aren't doing a thing. For them to understand, though, that institutions are really accumulating it, they're going to have to see it. And one day, I don't know when that day is going to be, but it will be pretty obvious who bought the Bitcoin, which companies have the Bitcoin. Right now, we don't know who's been, as the price has gone down and all these people in terms of fiat, and people have been selling, we don't know who's been buying this. We don't know. I mean, you're assuming that it's been, and I also think it's companies. We don't know, but one day they're going to make it quite clear that they have it, and then people are going to be like, "Uh-oh, I should have." It'll be too late at that point. It will be way too late at that point.
Just think about this. Have you ever heard Samsung talk about integrating stocks and shares into their phone? That doesn't happen. Have you heard Samsung talk about how they're going to make it easy for people to integrate with gold?
Yeah, there we go. That is what oh man, that's beautiful. That I got to tell all the gold people that one. continue. Sorry.
That's it. I mean, the writing's on the wall with this. It's okay, Samsung could just be an idiot that got it wrong, but I don't think they are. I don't think they.
But at the same time, we have what companies out there are talking about? Oh yeah, we're incorporating gold into our into the way we do business.
You wouldn't. It would just be an app that some gold person creates an app. It's not going to go into the phone. But this is crypto. This is being like integrated into the plumbing and engineering of some of the largest companies in the world. It's just truly incredible.
Yeah, and you can't do that with gold. I'm getting into a different subject matter right now because there's always those people say, oh, I'd rather have gold. I'd rather have something that I can touch. This Bitcoin thing is just a fad. But no, it's when you put it in that perspective, we've got these companies speaking up, Twitter, Jack Dorsey, whatever, very interested in Bitcoin, very interested in corporate. You can't, even if you wanted to, you couldn't incorporate gold. It's so past tense. People ask me still, do you have any gold, Adam? No, and this is the reason why it's not very exciting.
The gold debate is you can make it a bit more simple. It doesn't need to be gold or crypto. There's two different use cases. If you were incredibly wealthy and you want to preserve your wealth, then gold has decades and decades and centuries and millennials, whatever you call it, of experience at being a store of value. It maintains its value. If you are looking to increase your capital in a speculative way, then for the first time in history, we've got this new thing that I call a speculative store of value. And that is that Bitcoin one day could become a very good store of value, just like gold is today. And at that point, when it's kind of stable, it could be a median of exchange and all the units of account and all the interesting things that come with that, and world reserve and whatever you want to call it. But today, the vast majority of the world don't know that. And that's why there's an opportunity to speculate on whether Bitcoin can become a real decent store of value. And the difference between the number of people that believe this could be a store of value versus it actually becoming a store of value is the speculative opportunity to increase your wealth based upon whether that actually happens. Now, that's kind of different to a store of value where you're just saying, I've got this amount of wealth and I want to preserve it and I don't want it to increase and I don't want to speculate. And so really those are two different asset classes. But to me, gold is kind of on the trend around, if Bitcoin does become that store of value, which to me is the writings on the wall, then there's a great speculative opportunity to benefit from getting there. And gold kind of feels like petrol when everything's going electric.
All right, let's expand upon this a little bit. This deals with this subject matter a bit. We've got a guy like Jeff Bezos who has become incredibly rich through the internet and now what is considered more traditional means. Now, let's pretend he gets to keep all his wealth after his divorce. Let's just pretend. Will the first trillionaire on Earth be someone like Bezos, or will it be someone from the world of crypto?
Well, to me, it's I'm pretty sure it will be crypto. That's a timing question, and I think the timing for crypto becoming more useful to more people and becoming worth so much. But there's already enough people that own enough crypto and enough Bitcoin that I can see them becoming trillionaires within a small time frame if this all goes the way it's meant to go.
I mean, this is so right now, you go to most industrialized parts of the world, Western world, people know who Jeff Bezos is. They know who Bill Gates is. You're by the end of the next decade, there could be someone from crypto that is just like that. That's just known, but right now is not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, during our crypto bull market, I'm pretty sure Vitalik got pretty close. There's some tremendous wealth in this industry.
I'm thinking about it. Like all of us here in our little world of crypto, we're very familiar with all the names of crypto, but most people, you say Vitalik, they don't know outside of our world, they don't know who it is. But You know, one day he could be just, his name could be just like, or someone just like him. The Winklevi, for example, that their names, it would just be like talking about Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. I look forward to that time. I believe it will happen, but I'm thinking out loud a little bit here.
Yeah, the only issue is nobody wants to disclose the number of Bitcoins they got. So
yeah, but I think we've got to with what's their faces with the Winklevi. I think it's pretty much known that they might have 1% of all the Bitcoin out there. Well, again, it's not exactly known, but with that number in mind, one could calculate when they would become trillionaires.
Sure, I imagine the Winklevi being the type of people that would just disclose it for their reasons anyway.
Well, yeah, to get the final shot on Zuckerberg there, you know, we've won. We finally. You know, they are in a copy, and he's of course one of the richest people on earth that everybody knows his name also. So one day maybe them too. That'll be great. All right, let's see what else there. We talked about the trillionaire. Oh, let's have a quick a Bank to the Future update. Any news that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so a couple of things. We have launched our secondary market. That means that our investors can now buy and sell shares in our Bitfinex SPV. Every share on the platform is backed by a share in Bitfinex, and people can buy and sell those now on our OTC online trading desk and platform. We're also iterating out into the security token market. So we launched the BF Wallet, which is an app for iOS and Android that allows you to hold security tokens. And we're really excited about some of the things that are coming out in terms of tokenization on Bitcoin as well. At the moment, it's all done with Ethereum. All the innovation is in Ethereum in terms of the tokenization area and the securities token. But I think we're seeing, a re-emergence with the Liquid network, which was created by the Blockstream team. Which allows for tokenization of securities on the Bitcoin blockchain and 1-minute confirmation times. That can also is already integrated into the Lightning network, which can allow for ultra fast transfer of these securities. Also there's, we're investors in Rootstock, and their technology is now live. I've already started moving around tokens that were built upon the Rootstock sidechain. And I think they made an announcement where 45% of the mining network is merge mined, which means that they simultaneously mine Bitcoin and the Rootstock network. And so it's really interesting to see that some of these Ethereum use cases are actually coming to Bitcoin. And so there's a whole nother layer of whether that's actually gonna happen. And so, yeah, at the moment, the Bank to the Future wallet is built upon Ethereum, but we're also really mindful of seeing if we could take a lot of the equity that we have in the most valuable companies in crypto. And because of our unique structure, whereby we can trade those back and forth on our secondary market, we could also at some point allow those to be tokenized securities that you can hold on your wallet. And there will be real-time pricing for, like say the top 10 or 20 top companies in the Bitcoin and crypto area. So we're really excited about building out that ecosystem. Yeah.
Well, speaking of top companies, a company that people mention a lot is ByNance. Your thoughts on the ByNance coin and on ByNance in general?
Well, ByNance is an incredibly successful company that achieved its success in a very short period of time due to some market timing, good management and good decisions and forecasting the market and getting ahead of certain trends, and also having an element of luck and timing behind them. But I haven't got bad things to say about ByNance. They seem like a company that listens to their customers. They've created a token around their ecosystem, and they're showing that there is a use case that you can create a token that gets valued over $1 billion based upon the utility of that token within the ecosystem, which creates a new class. I think we're going to see a scarcity in these reputable tokens after we had 2,000 of them created in 2017 that need to disappear.
You think the value is based on the utility, or do you think the value is based on people thinking they're investing in ByNance? I wonder. That's my thought on that.
Both, but on the Binance platform, you can get discounted trading fees by paying with the Binance token, and a lot of people are trading on Binance. They have got a lot of volume, and a lot of people are using that utility. And now they launched a decentralized exchange, and they're using the token as part of the ecosystem. So there is a utility. Granted, it's definitely speculation based. Whether people are investing in the Binance token, thinking it's Binance the equity, that would be interesting. And I think that's something that we could actually help at Bank to the Future, because as an equity platform, if we can make equity trading available for companies like Binance, that's not one that's available on our platform right now, but we can certainly try and make that happen. Then it would be interesting to see whether people actually value the equity or the token, but then the company will probably hold a significant reserve of the token, and therefore the equity value will go up with the token value. It's just an interesting thing that's kind of a side effect from this token economy that was created.
Well, we have talked about it all on today's show, and we are approaching the end. So Simon, any final thoughts, anything that we left out, anything you want to mention that's popped into your head while we've been talking this last hour?
I think we covered it all, Adam. In summary, we're in a bear market, and an incredible amount of things are being built at the moment. The desire and appetite for people to build for this industry has just had a big shakeout. We've had companies go bust that were mismanaging funds. We've had people that were here just for the fast buck disappear. And it's left a really healthy ecosystem of people that are building at the protocol level, and a great ecosystem of companies that are really building right now, and also institutional companies that are looking to bring the next wave of institutional money into the industry, and corporations like Samsung that are saying crypto is important enough to be integrated into our next phone, because we think that there's an economy out there and we need to be part of it. So it's just the crypto bear market is just such a great opportunity to accumulate and be involved in something when other people are just too short-sighted and not patient enough to be involved. And unfortunately, those would be the people that would be buying crypto at new time highs and creating podcasts only when there's hundreds of thousands of people to view the videos. But I guess it all contributes to adoption, and we go through the next cycle again.
It's all cyclical. I love leaving it on a positive note. You got a lot of positive vibes from this show today, people. Pound that like button. And of course, check out the links below. I linked to Bank to the Future, to Simon. Check him out. Go through the archives, watch other shows that Simon's been on. He's been saying this. Hey, he sticks with it just like I stick with it. We both got conviction for this, and it just takes some patience and have a strong hand. Don't be freaked out by some of these stories that you hear out there. Listen to Simon more. Come to the channel more. Again, I do a new show here every day. Follow me at TechBalt, TCHBALT on Twitter. And again, This Week in Bitcoin is every Friday. So check out techbalt.com to watch all of them. Adam Meister.
I will say one more thing, actually. I've started to go live on the Bank to the Future YouTube channel weekly. It's not when I come on Adam Meister's channel, I can talk about Bitcoin and all these things that are happening. For those that are specifically interested in investing in the crypto ecosystem, then we've started to actually go live on the Bank to the Future YouTube channel, and I'm going live every week. So trying to put some more content out there as well.
Yeah, I thought that was a good idea. I saw that on your Twitter feed, that there's all of a sudden these new videos with Simon Dixon out there, but they're produced by Bank to the Future. So that's a great idea, people. Check them out. They are out there, and yeah, everyone wants to see more videos from Simon Dixon. So I'm glad you're jumping on that. Okay, everyone. Again, I'm Adam Meister, Bitcoin Meister, Disrupt Meister. Subscribe to the channel. Pound that like button. Shabbat Shalom. See you tomorrow. Thanks a lot, Simon. Bye-bye, everyone. See you.